我觉得我已经是很强的选手了，所以跟谁打都差不多。RNG 他们犯的错误不算少，所以我蛮有自信能赢过他们。
Control is obvious. You're just shuffling death rattles back into your deck, getting the N'Zoth and just overwhelming them with value and basically never fatiguing at the same time. And also, the natural predator of Howlfiend does just happen to be Whirlwind effects, as there is a very high amount of them in Celestial's warrior list. We see double Whirlwind, double Blood Razor, doing a great job of, hopefully, for their sake, just discarding the entire hand from Baiza's discard zoo.
If Baiza's going to win this one, she needs to win it as quickly as she possibly can. The problem with this zoo list, wait for it, is that there's no Gul'dan in the deck, and that is a card that would actually boost their win rate against the warrior significantly. It's a way of coming back onto the board later in the game and actually dealing some damage to the warrior. But with this list, Baiza just has to win fast and win hard. And those two Doomsayers going to make that pretty difficult.
Oh, these are just absolutely perfect for her. She can get, oh sorry, for Tom, sorry, he can get a great hold onto the board, go for something like a Devil's Saw Egg whilst there's no tempo coming down from his opponent, which is exactly when you do want to do it, because obviously playing a 3-mana 0-3 can be pretty risky in terms of just falling too far behind on board. But with things like Doomsayer coming down, it could just make quick work of everything that Baiza's trying to do.
I am really surprised to see Tom passing on that turn. With two Doomsayers in hand, I cannot fathom why he'd feel comfortable holding back the first one. What do you think, Derek?
Okay, so in order for them not to go off, it would have to be a pretty powerful follow-up to the Flame Imp in order for it to not have an activation on turn 2. And the thing is, looking at his game plan, he wants to go Doomsayer into Egg. He doesn't want to go Doomsayer into Egg, because that's two of the most powerful anti-aggro cards already thrown out of the way. And so I think, obviously, in this match, he would have really liked to have the Doomsayer already thrown down, because this is a blisteringly fast start for Baiza. I think the potential upside of it not being quite fast enough of a start to kill off the Doomsayer is worth it for Tom, but it is definitely worth debating.
Okay, so Tom can develop the egg here. He doesn't have many other options. The Doomsayer just dies. If he drops the egg, then he can coin out Brawl next turn and definitely end up with a 5-5. And if he doesn't end up with a 5-5, that's fine, because his opponent's board gets cleared. So either way, he kind of wins that Brawl.
But this is really going to be setting off alarm bells for Baiza. Seeing only an egg on turn 3 in terms of the actual board development is nothing from Tom. She has to be expecting some kind of a Whirlwind, Sleep with the Fishes, Blood Razor, Brawl, something to take out this board.
But she's still just putting everything down.
Still just going with full board development. Clearly just taking the quite large risk that there's no powerful board clear for Tom. And to be honest, I think this is an overextension.
I agree. That was... the alarm bells should have been ringing, but they weren't. There's the Brawl. Baiza not even reacting to it. Stone cold right now. Quickly glanced towards Tom as she sees that the 1-1 Patches survives.
Patches is truly in charge now. Well, until he gets eaten by a baby dinosaur, of course. But now the follow-up for Tom is fairly strong as well, to be honest. He can just trade the the Devil's Saw into the Dreadlord quite happily in this situation, I think.
Stick up a Taunt.
Follow up with the Taunt, follow up with Armor Smiths. As soon as a Whirlwind effect is found, he can go with Sleep with the Fishes. Or maybe these double Doomsayers on this turn or the next would be worth throwing down just to get a clear board over the next turn or two.
This is the turning point, and I'm not even sure Baiza was overly punished by playing that Saronite Chain Gang last turn. She still got a little bit of reload, and from where I'm sitting, it looks like no matter what she's got, she is not getting back onto this board anytime soon, and this is already looking like a one game to Tom in my eyes.
It is looking that way to me indeed, especially because this deck from RNG, we've seen its power in the early game with things like Malkazar's Imp into the Howlfiend, the ridiculous power of Keleseth into Captain, as well as the ability to run every single early game card in the Zoo's arsenal is obviously very strong. But she is completely omitting, I believe, the Bone Mares, the Bone Mares, the Blood Reaver Gul'dan, the Cairn, all the late game card has been completely gutted from this deck.
Yeah, and Tom's playing this nice and slow. Played both Doomsayers there, fitting in an armor up every turn. Next turn he can play the Taunt and then armor up again. Then he's got, or just drop the Armor Smith. Like either way, there's no way Baiza gets through this without attacking into the Taunt unless she plays the Soulfire. And that doesn't work out perfectly either.
This has been absolutely beautifully played in the last couple of turns from Tom. You know, at this, when there was the one attack minion in patches left on Baiser's board, he could have gone for the Dire Horn on curve, but then Doomguard takes it out perfectly. Whereas if he goes for Doomsayer, there isn't that same ability to clear off everything from Tom. So, you know, perfectly playing around all the outs here for Baiser and leading up to having a strong board on turn 7, so he can then follow up with Garrosh and just completely destroy everything from Baiser.
I like the Soulfire here. There was some talk about Evolution's play yesterday and how Old Boy let some Armor Smiths live for a little bit too long, and Baiser's not taking that risk. Gonna try and prevent Tom from gaining too much health.
Oh, but even the positioning here from Baiser is kind of lazy, to be honest. The ability for Blood Reaver Ghoul, for the Garrosh to come down and take the minimum amount of damage possible could have been avoided from Baiser. She could have forced him to take 4 rather than 2 here. It's probably not going to make much difference, but this is where Baiser needs to slow down with her play. She's a very quick player, and in situations like this, you need to consider things like positioning.
This is the best Baiser's got. She's got to just play the Soulfire, get rid of the minion, and just hit the face as much as she can. Tom's going to be taking at least 4 damage next turn if he wants to face tank the weapon. So he's getting a little bit low, but then there's the shield block, and then there's the more taunts that he can draw. And so many tools to just get that armor back up.
Yeah, there are so few things. I mean, to be honest, he really doesn't need any other cards for the rest of the game. The Shadowmourne here in combination with double fishes and the new hero power, which often is a side grade rather than an upgrade to the armor up, but in this instance is absolutely ridiculous.
What I will say is there's no Mountain Fire armor in Tom's deck, so he might struggle a little bit later on, unless we just haven't seen them yet. That is a possibility.
We have only seen 21, I believe maybe now like 22 out of the cards as we see the second egg, but yes, it's worth bringing up that we haven't seen them yet. So maybe against the control decks like Taunt Warrior, where that extra armor gain can be very influential, will make it a bit weaker. But just look at the eggs in this situation. It's just all-out board control. As Baiser throws it down, Celestial are heading to the Grand Finals.
That is a huge win for Tom60229 and Team Celestial. Mitsuhide got to be proud of his performance there, and Tiddler proud of his teammates. Sadly for RNG, they take their first loss in the playoff stage. They will be playing against Planet Odd tomorrow to get their place in the finals, to get their second or even first place. But in the meantime, this is Celestial's day, and we will be seeing them tomorrow night playing against the winner of the other semi-final game.
That's right, and I think the name of the game there for RNG was potentially being a bit too risky at most points in that game. We saw throwing down the Saronite Chain Gang into a potential brawl. Even the deck, its very core, is a risky deck. You run the potential of just discarding your entire hand. So I think from RNG and Baiser in particular, while it has worked out before, in situations like this, it just didn't quite get the job done because of the super anti-aggro tech and great play we saw from Tom.
Yeah, the overextension was questionable, but honestly, looking at the tools that Tom had, I'm not sure there was much Baiser could do to get back onto that board anyway. Doomsayer, into Taunt, into Armor Smith, into more armor. It was a rough game for Baiser, and I was a little bit surprised to see her concede when she did. Tom's hand was still a little bit lacking at the end of the game there, and she did have some pressure to put on the board, but she thought enough was enough. And there you can see one more time the record of this great series for Celestial, who have, for the second time in a row, beaten RNG with a 3-1 score.
And here we can see all facets of Team Celestial from all of the players coming together. We see the interesting deck building from Mitsuhide and Tom60229 with that slightly off-meta N'Zoth Warrior, as well as some of the other decks being a little bit interesting. We see great individual play from Tom and Mitsuhide there. And also just in all these decks, as Tiddler was saying at the start, wanting to bring a little bit of showmanship to the tournament, wanting to entertain the viewers as much as possible. This was a very entertaining and fantastic series.
Oh, it was a great series, and as much as I do enjoy watching the really close matches in Hearthstone where Team 1 wins the first game, then Team 2 wins the second game, and they go all the way to Game 5, it's also quite entertaining watching a sweep, or something that's almost a sweep, and Mitsuhide's rogue play was fantastic. It was great to see Baiser make a little bit of a comeback. She is the well-known player, at least in the West, on that team, but it wasn't quite enough, and there you can see Team number 1 ready for the Grand Finals tomorrow. It will be Team Celestial. They've guaranteed themselves at least second place in this incredibly long tournament, and damn, they have worked for it.
They have indeed. And looking at tomorrow's match of RNG versus Planet Odd, I think RNG are in for another difficult matchup. Yeah. We see from their slightly more aggressive decks with the things like the Zoo, where the top end has just been cut off, that could struggle against Planet Odd's lineup, which has a pretty nice late game potential with things like Quest Mage and Warrior, where you really need to be able to keep going into the later stages of the game.
Well, that is us finished for today with the Gold Club World Championship. We do hope that you've enjoyed both games of Hearthstone and all of the Heroes of the Storm. We will be back tomorrow at the same times, both for Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm, for the finals of both different games. Derek, how excited are you for tomorrow?
I absolutely cannot describe it. Two fantastic series on the line between Planet Odd and RNG, and whoever wins that against Celestial. I still like Celestial in this tournament, but I cannot wait to find out.
All right, well, from all of us here in Beijing, have a wonderful